Welcome to Talking Reconciliation, a series of interviews and discussions presented by Global Reconciliation, an organisation that works around the world to promote communication and dialogue across cultural, religious, political and other kinds of difference. In this series, I talk with practitioners of reconciliation from many countries and from many walks of life. Here, I'm talking with Lekha Singh, a Los Angeles-based photographic artist and filmmaker. Her documentary, Beyond Right and Wrong, which was released in 2013, investigates human stories of reconciliation and forgiveness between individuals in countries and regions struggling with conflict and injustice. I started by asking Lekha about the experiences that led her to make the film.
I'm a nomad. I love traveling, and on one of my travels I was in Rwanda and taking a lot of photographs, and I saw this woman whose 5 children were killed, and the shocking thing was that she was sharing a soda with the person who had killed her children. I couldn't believe it. I kept asking the person next to me if it's true, and I just when I finally realized that there was some reality to it, I wanted to find out more about it, and the inquiry into that is why I made the film. I'm an impact junkie, and I like to do things that have an impact, and at first I thought I'd write the book on it, but I thought then that the film would make much more of an impact because more people would watch it, and now I'm writing the book. And so this is my first film, and the subject has deeply, deeply moved me, and so this is my exploration.
The film tells the stories of a number of people who have encountered issues in the context of conflict and have responded to the problems that they've faced in different ways. I wonder if you can explain how you understand the nature of their responses in terms of building of trust, in terms of forgiveness and in terms of reconciliation.
I kept asking the women that I met in Rwanda, why do you want to forgive? Why forgive? And a lot of people answered that it was for their children. They didn't want this process to carry on to the next generation. And so, and I got a lot of different answers. That was one answer. Some people said that this is a form of healing for them. And I think it's a bit of both, that they don't want this to be carried on to the next generations, as well as it's a form of healing for themselves and the healing of society.
Which were the cases that moved you most in the film?
Oh, it's hard to say that. I can't take sides. And I actually have 300 hours of film, and I have many, many stories. There was a beautiful story of a Hutu boy and a Tutsi girl, and it was like a movie. They were both very beautiful to look at as well. And we filmed them in fields of flowers and then talking together, but it didn't fit the film. But I think it's one of my favorite stories because it's a whole romance between the two that had so much conflict between them.
In the film, there's a very important scene where there's an angry interlocutor in the discussion involving Joe Berry and Patrick McGee, and he essentially accuses Jo, who's a victim in the sense that her father was killed by the IRA soldier, accuses her of being an apologist for, or even complicit in some way, in the acceptance of violence. And I guess in a sense the film is your response to this, but could you explain to me now, with the broader view that you have, having not only finished the film but taken it on tour and spoken to people, how you understand the nature of both that allegation and the response to it?
I think it's a really valid response. I think anger is one of the first things that happens, and there are people in the film Like Rami, for example, he says that he wakes up angry every day, and then he makes a choice as to what to do with that anger. And so I think I'm glad that Joe was there to address that as to how she responded. And her first response was anger too. And then how she transformed that. She likes to use the word transformation rather than forgiveness for that reason, because she feels that she's had quite a bit of healing and transformation through the process. So I think anger is a very valid response. So, yeah.
Have you encountered issues in your own life that have required a response based on forgiveness or reconciliation?
You know, it's funny, after I made this film, I went back home and my daughter said, "Mom, you can never be angry again." And of course, that's completely impossible. And I think that it has affected me in a very deep way, in that I think I'm a little more patient. And if I do get angry, it's short-lived. It doesn't last a long time. But, you know, this is the spectrum of human emotions, and we have all of them. And we can make a choice, though.
What do you hope to have achieved from the entire process of having made the film and taking it around the world, talking to people? What's the outcome that you're looking for?
Yeah, the major outcome that I'm looking for is for people to know that healing of this kind and peace is possible. Forgiveness is very disruptive. It's an emotion that we feel every day but don't acknowledge. I always say that there's no marriage that can go on without forgiveness. And so I think there's something about us that we don't even acknowledge it. And so for me, I think I want to start the conversation about it, and also to show that there is another option and there is another way of doing things.
So where do we go from here? This is your method of struggle and your contribution.
Yes.
But what advice do you have? What practical suggestions do you have for people working in their own contexts to foster reconciliation?
I think conversation is a major thing. And I think even breaking the silence, telling the story, having the conversation is a major process in healing. And I hope that through this film, that a lot of people will at least have a conversation about it. And that's why I traveled through the world speaking to people, etc., so that I can start the conversation.